It's showtime.
It's showtime. We're back again. Bambos chose the background for today's episode. Can you give us a little background what that is, so the people that don't see but are listening know what's behind us right now?
It's a banana hugging an aubergine and a cucumber.
A banana hugging an aubergine and a cucumber. And we have that on today's show because we're with Karyn Leigh, and we are going to be discuss surviving an open marriage on
A Wonderful Chaos.
Oh, you're in the zone, Bambos. You're in the zone. I love it. Depending on the topic will get you sort of wherever you are.
I think it's because I picked out a really cool backdrop.
Nice.
I think it brings out your color of your eyes.
It does. It almost looks like my shirt if you put it myself close enough.
Surviving an open relationship, Andy.
Yeah, it's an open relationship. We said open marriage, but it wasn't marriage. It was a relationship. And first, like it would be good to sort of give a bit of a background from Karyn, because as you know, like I do love inviting old high school friends onto the show.
I did not know she was in your high school.
I know you didn't know that, but now you do. So Karyn was in my grade, and we had contact at that time. I wouldn't say we were like close friends, but we were friends. And kind of noteworthy is that we both ran for president of that high school at that senior year. And unfortunately, she won and not me, you know? But since my campaign was so controversial, they gave me a new role in the student council. They made a communications role because I ran on such an absurd platform. They said we have to give him something to do.
Yeah.
So we actually ended up spending a whole year in the same class together because we were on the student council, and that was its own class.
Sweet.
And you'll like this fun fact. We have the teacher of that class, Bill Appleblossom, is going to be on our show in like a week and a half. So we've actually got again, I'm pulling from the well of high school because I enjoy it so much. So Karyn and we reconnected, especially when I was doing the last letter. And when I was doing the tour, I also did a session at her home with her community, which was really, really cool. And as I've worked and been with Karyn, like I've seen, this, how like there's that kind of saying, you sort of like living like an astronaut, but never leaving the planet.
No, but it makes sense.
So in some ways, like Karyn, and I'm always like a lover of vanguard people that go against social norm to make exploration, to see what it is they can discover about themselves. And that exploration always comes at a cost, because people, family, friends, they have expectations and they have ideas of what normalcy is. And they use their ideas of normalcy to judge, and they'll do it in overt and non-overt ways, and subtle and not so subtle.
Yeah.
And so Karyn is someone who's been bold, experimenting, and actually unrelentingly staying true to the discovery in herself without letting society stop her from doing that. Including what I've learned to be like a family that's sort of like not all that keen on her own,
lifestyle
and choices. So you know how I am in life. When people go that route, I have such admiration for them, because what I know is that they're doing it to learn the lessons they need to learn, and they're not letting anything in their environment inhibit that. So when I talked to Karyn before she was coming on, Karyn does embodiment work. She has community. She's always coming up with new, beautiful ideas on how to kind of help herself and the community around her. So when I said, like, what's the topic going to be? She said, well, we can do this stuff. And then I said, how about we go here? And I think that 9 out of 10 people would have said, you know what, Andy, let's not do that. Like, why would I poke that bear? because it could bring up stuff that's uncomfortable. It could, who knows what things might happen,
Who's going to be watching?
Who's going to be watching.
Wow.
And so in spite of that, she said almost without any reserve, let's do it. And I get tingles now as I say this, because in a weird way, there's like a love and a trust I felt towards me.
Can you just slow down a bit just to feel that? Jesus.
I'm feeling it in my arms.
Yeah.
Look at my hair standing up. And that was like, that was really, really beautiful. So and that speaks to her dedication for truth, not to the truth, but just truth, just letting things be and exploring and living and growing. So with that, I'd love to bring her on, because now I feel like we already.
If she's not blushing,
she probably
from
doesn't
listening to all this.
I'm crying. I'm not blushing. I'm just like really honored.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, that's you.
Wow. Thank you, Andy.
It is.
Thank you for that mirror. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. You're gonna make me cry now.
I gotta breathe here. Gotta breathe.
Yeah, let Bambos take us now. He'll ground us again. That's his role here.
That's all I'm good for. Let's just take our time into it. It's beautiful to just feel what needs to be felt in this moment.
And one thing you should know is I close my eyes when I'm feeling deep things, just to kind of let it in. So I'm with you.
Well, since your eyes were closed, you didn't see that I closed my eyes, because that's how I do it as well.
Yeah, I did the same, and then I opened to check in.
Yeah, the stimulus of having your eyes open is another distraction that takes you away from just being in your body. For me, at least.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm a Kundalini yoga teacher, and that's a really important part of the practice, is staying with your own inner experience. And of course, it can be uncomfortable. Like you said, you have to really trust your environment and who does have the space to be able to do that. So.
Yeah. So how, I don't know if have you thought of yourself as somebody who's ventured in to allowing this much sort of challenge, by saying, by being unabashedly okay with discovering what there was in an open marriage, you obviously invited the discord of anyone who might have values that were at odds with that. So how did you navigate that to begin with?
Well, as you so accurately know and have observed, at the beginning, in high school, I had a double life. And my parents, and I don't think anyone would listen to this, and if they do, they might learn some things they don't know to this day, because what I learned to do was keep up appearances and show this group what they wanted to see, and show, the other people who were partying and whatever I was doing at the time, what they wanted. So at a certain point, that was just it wasn't living in integrity, which is wholeness. So it was driving me crazy. And I came out in my first actual one and only marriage. I think you mentioned that this recent relationship, we never legally married, but we were very committed. And I really, really love my former partner. I mean, it's now that I've navigated like the big sort of practical physical steps of leaving the temple home that we cultivated together. We had a retreat center. We had so many wonderful events. One of them was your last letter event. I can feel again, like just how big it was. So back to your question. I learned the hard way even with that. So in my first marriage, I was in love with someone else. So I came out to my family because I was practicing Kundalini yoga, and we chant Sat Nam, Sat Nam, Sat Nam. Truth is my identity. So I took that literally to mean I better tell everyone the truth. Oh my gosh, bad idea. I mean, it triggered my former husband. One of my friends calls her former husband her husband, and I love that. Very kind way. So my husband, was very triggered, and we went through a huge drama that was extremely painful, involving our two sons, and him keeping them from me for an extended period of time, and me having to go through an international child custody legal battle and prove that I was not an unfit mother because I was in a cult, because Kundalini yogis, some of them wear turbans, so it was kind of an easy target. So I too learned the hard way that just telling everyone the truth on one day has consequences that then rolled out of control. I was like, wow. So I now, which is why it's very vulnerable to be even on your show, and I trust you very much, because I've learned, and it's still a dynamic tension within me, to have boundaries. Like, who is really an okay person to open my tender heart to all the way and be really real, and who is it better for me and my integrity to just keep a little more superficial distance. And when my mom found out really what open relationship meant, that my former partner was having sex with other women, she just flipped out, and she blamed him for being an evil person. And I delve into a lot of woo-woo, and do really deep spiritual work on past lives and things like that. And I've since learned, like, my mother and my former partner, we've had really intense past lives together where she would be afraid of him and what he might do to me. But it's cleared. There are ways that we can clear that stuff from our subconscious and unconscious. So there were lots of lessons, and I have to do that work. I have to find out, like, what's under that. And it's very uncomfortable for people in my life. And I navigate it every day. I'm about to go have a family vacation, and my stepdad didn't want me there this week because they have another family who, I think they were literally like, we don't want Karyn around because she might be herself and it'll make us look bad in front of this other family. And I tried. I was like, I don't feel welcome. I am not, I said, I don't know why I should even bother coming, because, if I can't be myself, what's the point?
Well, my first impression of you is, like, when I saw, like, wow, she's so radiant. So if being yourself means radiance, like, wow. Let's just As you were speaking, I noticed my heart beating really fast. And it was because my curiosity went before you lived that double life in high school. At least in my life, that double life, I learned that when I was much younger, and I'm wondering if you shared that same experience as me. Yeah.
Oh, I was an expert. I mean, I was the straight A student body president, but long before high school. I was raised, my father's a church choir director, and I would like not go to Sunday school and like hide out in the bushes and encourage other kids to come ditch Sunday school and like play with me outside, or I'd go to the class of the older kids because I was like, the younger kids, I don't need them. I'm gonna go. Yeah, so I did it, and I played. Well, it was Eve and Eve because the friend of mine was a little girl. I must have been 5 or something, and we took off our clothes and we played in the bushes, like right outside, naked, and we pooped and peed. And the mailman came one day, and I was so ashamed. It was literally like being in the garden and having like, I'm naked. I should be ashamed, and I was so terrified that my parents would find out. The mailman would tell them, like, do you know your daughter's naked in the bushes right there? It smells like poop.
Wow.
What's she doing?
Well, that experience, I can imagine. I felt a bit of suppression there, that you had to suppress something.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I remember feeling a lot of shame about that for a long time. And, I know from reading some of Brene Brown's work that, shame is just a really toxic human experience. It doesn't help us grow in any way.
No.
Because our compost, I mean, the earth loves compost and actually needs it from us. Our shit is literally the stuff that grows the new life.
Yeah.
There's nothing shameful about it. It's part of the life, death, rebirth cycle, but we're not really taught that.
Yeah, and I always have the impression that, when you talk about your dad being a choir director, and then you kind of have a kind of idea of what that household might be like, right? The values that would be expected of you. So it's sort of amazing because I always knew you, even in high school, as sort of, already felt like you were 10 years older than you were in high school. You were like more mature than I was, for damn sure. And I think to myself, in a weird way, you were always in that case like held in, I would almost say, with a social upbringing that didn't really match your being.
Yeah. I also did work. A wonderful woman, Barbara Scher, wrote a book about dreaming into your life. And what if you had like parents who were super supportive? Who would they have been, and who would you be if you'd been supported to be the person you really are? Woohoo!
I want to slow us down there, though. Like, my parents were never supportive, and I could never communicate what I needed because I didn't know I had the choice. But being where I am today, I feel so grateful, because if they had given me everything that I needed back then, I didn't even know what I needed.
Yeah.
So to some degree, by them not picking me up in the way that I needed to be picked up in my mind, I'm the man who I am today. So I feel really grateful to that.
Yeah. I mean, life doesn't make mistakes. And I chose every single bit of it. And this might be like another, you might want to invite me back for a whole other controversial podcast. And this I've never shared with my parents either, but I've also done over the last couple of years a lot of work with psychedelics, and really, really saw that exact gratitude of like, if I could do it all over again, I wouldn't change anything. And like deep gratitude for the wrenching pain that forged that radiance you see today. I mean, really, diamonds get crushed in the coal. I mean, it must not be very fun.
Yeah, we've talked. I've been very excited about the psychedelic discussions. Bambos is always looking at me like, "Why is this so interesting to you?" Sort of thing.
That's not true. Like I used to be a drug addict, so in my life, after the 10-year addiction, I came out of it, and I didn't feel the need to go there anymore. But yeah, if people use it, I don't have any judgment. So I am curious to dive into it. I just tease this dick here once in a while. Were you aware that you were living a double life during high school? Like, would you look at yourself in the mirror and be like, wow, now I'm going to step into this other role? Like, were you consciously aware of that?
No. I've been working on a memoir for a really long time. I was just super judgmental of myself. And I was always writing, you know, I know God really wants me to be different. And so, and my view of God was not super judgmental. Like I had a sense, because even at our high school, it was a Catholic high school, and we had religion class. And now, by the way, as an aside, I came up with, I took a stand-up comedy class, and I had a lot of fun, even though we only met in person once and then it went all online. I have a little 5-minute comedy set now that's been really fun to use some of those things from my past now in a humorous way. But back to so we had religion class, and we were introduced to some really beautiful Catholic, very spiritual Henry Nouwen, and he writes about compassion, and I really got roots in listening and holding space for others, and somehow I must have been doing that a little bit for myself. But when it hit me was when my senior year, when I was applying for college, I looked at my transcripts and everything, and I was like, this is all just to try to get into college. What does it mean to me? Like, why? And I made a vow to go to college to learn, not to get good grades, not to keep up appearances. But of course, it takes longer to kind of unravel those. A high achiever, I would call it even a rut. You know, I was addicted to high achievement, like someone could be addicted to drugs, because that's what helped me survive.
I think you might have gotten aggravated with me when we were in the same class, because I would be always jerking around. We would go on field trips, and I'd be making snarky remarks in the background. I always felt like you were one of the adults that had to look over me to make sure that it didn't go too far off the.
Yeah, that taking myself too seriously is definitely. I'm just in this funky chair, so I'm going to move a little bit. I don't want to shake the computer too much. But yeah.
So when was the?
And that's something like, I don't want to be other people's parents, you know? And I do want to be my own son's parents, but that's another big project for me right now, is like not being the adult, the only adult in adult relationships, so that I can be an appropriate adult for my own sons, but not adulting everybody.
Well, I mean, this is interesting what you now say, right? Because now it's kind of, I mentioned earlier, you were raised in a society. Let's face it. If you were raised in a Northern California ashram, every way you were living would be normal, right? So now you now have evolved through this society, found your own way, and yet you now have 2 kids, which are also part of the society.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so.
And in a weird way, it's like, how do you, and I'm sure you're not the only one, right? How do you stay true to your way and not give these children kind of fear, shame, guilt, everything that they're there, because they have certain expectations of what real normalcy is like.
Yeah.
Not even, and no one ever thinking to themselves, normalcy is only normal because it's been created that way to create structure in society, right? That thought goes unseen, of course.
Yeah. And
It's not normal to do this. It's not normal to be like that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And well, at one point, because I just thought, oh my gosh, I have 2 boys. They don't have a sister. And they're going to grow up with this like weird view of women. So, and I'm very comfortable with my body. So I would just be naked at home. And then one day, my older son, or I don't know if both of them or just my older son, he started asking his friends, have you ever seen your mom naked? And most of them said no. And then he asked me, he's like, Mom, can you stop doing that? It's really making me uncomfortable. And of course I said, of course. But my younger son like whispered in my ear, it's okay with me. It doesn't bother me.
Oh, you're going to get them into trouble.
I know.
I love it. No, but I mean,
I don't think they're listening, but
let's be honest. Like, that's how it works.
You know, because
thanks for catching that.
I want to respect them and not like over push them so they can have their own journey.
Yeah.
Like as long as, like in my body, how it feels, as long as we can talk about it and not suppress it. So you don't tell me not to do this. Like, I also want to have an understanding that you can fully own your discomfort in it and explore, and also allow him to investigate what it means for him, and not just, I want to do this to protect you. It's okay, so you're not uncomfortable. So we're solving your discomfort now.
Yeah, and that's something, I mean, I can feel a really deep sorrow in myself about not yet. I've given my sons permission to express however they feel, but they live with their dad, and their dad is very different than me. No surprise. And especially during all the coronavirus and the shelter in place, they've been sheltering with their dad. And talk about like a microcosm of what has been since I left the marriage in 2015, so 5 years ago. But now it's just so obvious that, you know, their dad is their primary role model and parent, and they know how much I love them, and they know that I'm present, but it's very different than me being there. But I couldn't be true to my integrity and stay in that marriage. And it's been a great source of sorrow for me, because I really miss my kids, and I really miss like being able to hold them. And they're open to that, but with the shelter in place and then where I've been staying and the other people that I'm close to, I can't be in integrity with them and be physically close to my sons right now. So that's been a really big one. It's like the whole world's in an open relationship, back to our topic, because we have to disclose contact. We have to think about, you know, it's gone way beyond sexual safety and, you know, sexually transmitted disease, which was a huge part of open relating, to, you know, casual contact. Were you in a car with that person? Did you hug them? You know, did you have contact with the surfaces they have contact with and touch your face? You know, it's gone to such extreme levels.
That's fascinating. I never really thought about that. But I mean, it is like that. I mean, if you have an open relationship, kind of the agreement you make, I'm sure, is that you're going to protect yourself, you know, from in a health regards. So as soon as we have COVID, we have no difference. They're very similar situations.
Yeah.
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 Wow.
And interesting to see how, one perspective on how to get it under control is to track everybody and make them tell the truth in a certain sense by tracking them with their phones, because people are terrified of losing control,
Mm.
Yeah.
I'm curious, when you said you went through high school, got through college, you were called it an overachiever, and then at some point it all shifted. So like what was
an underachiever.
is that right? Did it shift to that? Did you
Well,
go from one extreme to the other?
I have, yeah. I mean, once I left my sort of career job in fundraising I went back and worked as a fundraiser for my alma mater, UC Berkeley. And since I became an entrepreneur, I haven't really made money.
Yeah.
So I guess in some people's, but I'm always okay.
Yeah.
And so I'm very resourceful and I'm very proud of myself, actually, the way I manage resources. But I guess it depends what you consider success.
Yeah. I was not looking at the success part of it. I was like, say, like when you dropped off the radar, right? Which is kind of when my story, I left Vienna, lived in the attic space, sold everything I owned and said, this is my life do-over. I mean, in some ways, I guess your life do-over may have started when you separated from your husband.
Yeah, it did. And I didn't have a place to live, and I discovered Craigslist temporary housing, and I had adventures living in different households, which brings us to the present moment. And then I met my former open partner, and I chose, by the way, open relationship. And it had been a long time coming, even since my separation. So another part of my story is I separated, went through the whole drama with my husband. Then we reconciled for 5 years. And in the 2 years we were separated, I discovered this polyamory. And, because I was an ally for gays and lesbians, and I've had some bisexual experiences with women, and I was very close to a woman, and we were dating, or I don't know. She was a super support during my whole drama, and we did try out like being sexual, but I realized, really I'm just more in the hetero camp. But this polyamory thing is interesting. I think that's who I really am.
Yeah. But I mean, what I find fascinating and beautiful is that in some ways, what you're doing is you're allowing yourself to explore where others would cut it short because they'd feel shame or guilt. And it's almost like what I've seen in you is you're like, you'd explore and then you'd be like, oh shit, there's implications for this on the back end I didn't think about.
Yeah, no kidding. It's dive in.
Yeah.
100%. And yeah.
So, I guess in some weird way, it wasn't like one day to the next you said, I'm going to do this open relationship. You sort of progressed to saying, I always have an interesting feeling when it comes to this thought. It's like, when did we attach love to a person and not just love?
Yeah.
And then when did we say, of course, societally, it became more and more standardized. We have sex with one single partner. We get married, of course, because that's what society dictates to us. And then we create a union, and that union is based on trust, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, till death do us part.
He's married, you can tell.
And I always find it so absurd that storyline has gotten so ingrained that no one ever considers the fact that that's a storyline.
Yeah, it's a storyline, and then so many people don't follow it. They do the marriage, and then Esther Perel and some interesting people have shown, there's so many affairs and so much cheating and all that. And then exactly that, it makes it all shadowy and secret. And believe me, I know, because by being open, it was like, I want to be in integrity. So one of the definitions that I had on my online dating site where I met my former partner was ethical non-monogamy. And it's like, how do we do this ethically? And really, and I have way more learnings about it now than I ever did before I was fully in it. So great. I'm in human school. I'm learning.
Yeah. But you could only have learned if you'd taken the dip and found out what doesn't work.
Right. Yeah.
Like so I see that it sort of evolved until the point when there was the point when you sort of invited it into a past relationship, but then you progressed to say, now I'm going to base a relationship on this different modality, let's say, this different way of being in the world. And how did that then go? Because a lot of people would say, oh, so you started out in a place where, because a lot of people, they're together with a partner for an extended period of time. And then all of a sudden, one of the two partners says, how about we invite somebody in and we have an experience just to sort of spice things up.
Right. Yeah.
And now you're sort of into another phase where you've said, no, I'm actually inviting a partner who from the onset is like, we're going to be life partners, but our love partners, we can explore that and stay in relationship while that happens.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So how did that evolve? Like, what did that look like?
Well, what I recognize now with the 2020 hindsight is that I didn't know enough about the person I chose to do that with to make a good decision.
Okay.
Like I'm still all for that. And in fact, the current person that I'm seeing, I mean, it's complicated by distance and all kinds of other things. But when I first met him, I thought, finally, we can do this in a balanced way, because the person with whom I was, my former partner, who I was just gaga about, I'm just thinking of the words to describe it. His relationship style was very avoidant, and I didn't know how to ask for what I needed. So like Bambos was saying, I'm so grateful because now I've learned through a lot of painful not knowing how to say, actually, when things get really, really intense and hard, that's when I need you to stick around and hold me and not go to your other girlfriend and leave me and have all your needs met over there, while I'm like, this is super painful. This is where we get to do our work of being lifetime partners and having other loves, is like right here in the heart of the conflict or disruption, but we didn't have a practice for that. And so by the time I could really articulate that, there was so much pain. It just felt like insurmountable to repair. And we do enough repair throughout that we saw a therapist who's wonderful and really helped us grow. But we did get to a place where even our therapist said, it just really feels like you're not growing together, that you've reached a place where, and he suggested that we take a 3-month hiatus from being lovers and just see what it was like to be housemates. And I felt such relief. after that. I couldn't even ask for that myself, though, which
Wow.
was really interesting. And he, who had been seeing us for almost 3 years, through lots and lots, because we would go to see him when we were in our big,
And the worst. Yeah.
yeah. And I was just like, oh, yeah, and so I learned a lot, but unfortunately, it just felt like we'd gone to a point beyond return. And in fact, now, we've all, or I'm not sure. I left the house in May, and I'm not sure what his process is now, but yeah, we came to a complete split where, now there's no communication anymore. And that's so painful, not having communication with a person that you thought you were spending your life with, and it's very painful. So,
when I've seen pictures, I think with the person you're now seeing, and I think I called you up pretty much immediately after seeing the picture, because like the energy you embodied in your photos was unlike anything I'd seen in such a long time. And I talked even to Daria about that, because we both, a mutual friend of ours, said she said, yeah, when we see you, it's clear that there's sort of a person you're with, where, and I would say in the words I would often use is when I'm not sharing the same values with the person I'm with, then as soon as tension arises, then all of the fissures become really massive cracks. And I saw those fissures even when I was with you in the house.
Yeah.
So you met her ex?
Yeah. We were together during the last letter session, and I saw them, and my heart was kind of aching at that point, because in the vision I have, me, I'm like, if it makes you happy and it's not hurting anybody, that's who's to say what you can or can't do. But if I don't see someone living fully grounded in their joy, then all of a sudden I get anxious, like now it's not a sustainable system. So at least in our case, when we were together, it was sort of I'm going to spend time with the other woman, but I didn't see you embodying almost what I would think to be the joy that I'd want to have for that person, that he gets to have that experience.
Yeah.
Because that's the healthy relationship as far as I assess it on my end,
Right. And yeah, thanks for saying that.
Do you want me to kiss him for you?
Yeah, go for it. Aw.
Can you give me an alcohol wipe, please?
Yeah,
we're both in isolation, and it's okay.
Your wife is okay with that.
She's okay.
She's completely okay. They're
we're
both like my
we're
parents.
the only three. If there's anyone that's a partner to the three of us, it's Bambos. We're the only three that sort of spend any time together the last month.
So I was a little bit touched when you shared about your journey as an entrepreneur, because like my mind is still stuck there, so I see the curiosity is still there. And you were saying I don't have a lot of business and and like in the beginning, before you even mentioned that, I was like, wow, she's a Kundalini teacher. She probably has so many women following her, because I would never go to a teacher if I don't see embodying the thing that I perceive in myself that I want to live up to. Or like I want it to get rubbed on me. So you're shiny. I don't know if you use night cream or serums and shit like that, but you have this natural glow, this natural beauty about you, and a strength and a vulnerability that any leader should have. And like you're embodying the divine feminine for me right now.
Yeah, actually, the word that came up, I was going to the toilet before we had the session.
And then you thought about it.
And then I thought, how would I describe? And then the word divine feminine came to me when I was thinking of you. That's the word that came to me.
So in a weird way, any woman that wants to like live up to where you are, like that, I'm shiny, I'm not suppressing anything, I'm exploring, I'm open, I'm healing my wounds, whatever wounds they have in the past, like that's your marketing anyway.
Yeah, of course. She wrote the best.
Well,
She wrote the
thanks,
best
guys.
letter. When you wrote the letter for the session for this one, you sent that, and I got it last night. I really stepped back because it was such a beautiful sharing. I forwarded it to you. She wrote basically a MailChimp distribution, just this incredibly vulnerable, beautiful exchange, which I found I've also seen and I've watched your writing through the years, right? And I noticed that when we were first watching your writing, when you were beginning your practice, there was far more of a convincing energy in it that you needed or you wanted something from others that they, I need you to come to it. And as I've been experiencing you now, it's just being present and allowing that to be enough. And that's been really beautiful to share with you. It's been really
Thank you.
So-
Yeah, I feel like so many things are in flow now. And yeah, I have no concern about money. And I have a deep, deep trust. Yeah.
And just to step back a little bit to the topic. So it's so weird that I just saw the picture of you and the new person you're spending your time with.
Oh, yeah.
And it was so apparent to me in a weird, visceral way. Oh, that's the kind of individual that I see you sharing values with.
What exactly did you see?
He embodied this free. So I kind of so without going into too much detail, but the man that I met, who was a very nice man, but he was very similar to her husband in some ways for me.
Which is so fascinating because I could not see that, but other people do.
So now she basically, I would laughingly say, she found one of her own kind.
Okay.
He would be a granola type of individual, just to give it one word where you can get a good sense of what we're talking about. Which
my new guy.
Yeah, the new guy.
Yeah.
The new guy. Let's be clear. No,
she's touching her hair. Oh, there it goes.
I'll take my hair down.
Yeah. And he has he embodies a free-spirited energy. You see him singing on Facebook with reckless abandon. So you feel there's absolutely nothing in either of them that's there to represent or show anything other than what they really are. And I've often found that with me and Ronnie, and I go back to values, our core value, which we've talked about on the show before, is that we will discuss anything that's going on. We're not allowed to not discuss it. We can delay it because it's just not the right moment. I can't impose on you when it feels okay, but we do not avoid it. We do not discuss it. And if that's a core tenet of any relationship, then I can't imagine a planet where the two of you wouldn't be able to fall back to that sort of core working principle and find each other again.
Yeah. And that's one of our foundational practices, is just we're not going to sweep anything under the rug and then go slip on the banana peel down the line, because I learned how painful that is.
Yeah,
exactly.
So help me understand.
Yeah, thanks for seeing that.
I'd love to go to some salacious stuff now. So
in our last 10 minutes, for anyone who hung on this long,
exactly. So you are in the relationship with one partner. How do you get introduced to another partner? How does it evolve that, oh, this is another, and then what's the vetting process for that next, or what was it?
That's another thing that I learned that I will totally do differently next time. If, my current man and I decide, because we didn't have those really clear, it was just a free for all.
Oh,
and and then I requested, before things got sexy, to at least meet the person. I learned from really painful experiences. And I discovered I really want deep connection with people, as opposed to a lot of lovers, because for me, I mean, a conversation. I can feel close to someone just by really sharing deep conversation, and the physical. And don't get me wrong, when I lived in Europe, I had lovers who I wasn't super excited about them as relationship partners, but I really liked them as a lover. So I've had the gamut. And it was interesting when I had the permission to see whoever I wanted or whatever. I didn't find that I exercised my freedom, and the ways that I chose to really triggered my former partner. So it was very interesting that it wasn't nearly as open as it appeared. There were lots of contradictions under the surface.
Yeah.
He saw lots of people, and even that basic agreement of not getting involved with someone before I sort of had a chance to get to know them or at least have a conversation, he broke that agreement with the woman that now is like one of his main new people. So it started off with a broken agreement, and I definitely had my part in not being able to speak up for my needs.
Sure.
And because it always takes two to create, challenge. So I learned a lot about
But this
what
is
I would
it's
do
kind of
differently.
it's interesting because like you'd almost think, the strange, like if we're going to go into such a precarious situation, there's probably almost like a rule book. These are the 5
Well,
things that you have to do or not do,
there are, and to like there are communities. So back to your question about how do you meet people. So my former partner met most of his other people online on online dating. I met them organically. So I did have several other lovers, and but they were people that I met in communities or that I had direct experiences with in one context, and then we had dates later. And there's and I actually, to be like super ultra vulnerable, in a very late STI checkup, I did have a minor, infection that I don't know how long I'd had it. And it was very treatable and everything, but I had to make a series of phone calls to all the people that I'd had sex with and tell them, you need to get tested. And everyone was so gracious, except for one person, but which was interesting information. So everyone was so gracious, and it warmed my heart because it was like, wow, this is a really like vulnerable thing to have to do.
Yeah.
And just to see the people that I'd chosen, even if we didn't go on and have longer relationships, they were all super loving and respectful, and it wasn't a problem,
Yeah, that's the one thing, like, there's one thing I've always wanted for this show is that when people project onto other people blindly and don't see all the assumptions that they're making, like it's almost like it's beyond frustrating for me at times, because
Yeah.
in some weird way, it's almost like if you only were open enough to investigate and like hear what the real story is, you'd see like this wealth of like an experience behind it. And as you speak, it's almost like, yeah, this sounds like the most normal thing in the world. If I think about how one might experiment with life and try things out and see what works and doesn't. And it's just such a shame for me to see that there may very well even be people watching now that don't see that, wow, I've been conditioned to think of what normal is, where in a weird way, like you exploring this, now I would say, and this would be from me speaking, I hope from more experience than judgment, that going in to any relationship, polyamorous or
monogamy,
whatever, like not having basic tenets of the relationship, that itself is more of the issue than what you're doing outside of that.
Exactly. It all comes down to foundational communication
Yeah.
and being able to approach whoever we're in relationship with. And I've been writing about this because I'm in a women's circle and we're going to do work with our divine masculine within. So it's very timely that we're having this conversation. And so I just looked at like, what did I learn and what would I need? And it is that foundational communication to be able to stay in the fire together until we put it out. And so that, but not leave all this time if there's a conflict.
Yeah.
For it to keep
But I
building
mean,
and
but think
festering.
about that fire. That fire is greater than just about any other fire that a relationship will have to withstand. Notwithstanding like, robbery. I mean, because on one level, I don't know, on a primal level, like if I think of Ronnie with another man, like I can feel like this part of my brain that's very much like the animal feels like very protective and scared and angry. And so in some beautiful way, you really have to overcome or make peace with some aspects of yourself which aren't comfortable. It's far easier not to have to make comfort with those. So let's not invite the conflict in. Why would I want to have that stress in my life?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So you've invited a shitload of like potential problems, and you're gonna laugh. This might sound really weird. I don't think, based on a lot of assumptions, but I still feel this way, based on what I've seen in the videos that you've shared, in the communication, and just what the man that you're currently interacting with embodies, I would laughingly think that you wouldn't even need to outspeak half of the kind of basis values because you both live them.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Mir. Yeah.
I have one question. Like on your journey, when you kind of said, I'm gonna explore polyamory, do you see a difference in your intentions when you first said that and your intentions today?
Not really, because as Andy said, love is everywhere. It's the stuff, it's the life stuff that we're all composed of. It's all there is, actually. And so we're all in polyamorous relationships. I mean, you and Andy, and, we love more than one person. And polysexual, can be, like Andy noticed, it goes against societal norms. It just ups the opportunity to communicate.
Yeah, exactly. And you have to think to yourself, any relationship that, I wouldn't even want to say withstands that, because that would be holding back a negative, that rises up to actually a higher level because of it. I mean, that's beautiful.
Yeah, and I do know very successful open relationships. And in fact, I'm getting to witness people engaging in them right now, and it's just so beautiful. And I still see that as like a super evolved way. And then, of course, there's plenty of room for lots of mistakes and pain, because we don't have a roadmap from our culture about it. So that just makes it that much more.
And you have to deal with the familiar judgment or whatever. You have to hide, right? Just as anyone would have to hide if others judge. And even to the point where they say, we don't want you to show up for a vacation because we're worried that whatever it is we don't understand in you might make us uncomfortable.
Right. You have to be able to embrace, and one of the listeners right now, Raquel, is saying, being open to your insecurities and accepting them. And that's right. That is absolutely true. And I had lots of opportunity to embrace whatever was going on in my head and then see, oh, that isn't really what's going on. So it's a great opportunity to grow.
Yeah.
So, Karyn and
Wow.
Andy, we've come to our hour.
Wow.
Ah,
Just like that.
Just like that.
Was it as painful as you thought it was going to be?
it's beautiful. Really beautiful. You guys are awesome.
Yeah.
I could talk to you all day.
Well, we have a talk already on psychedelics, but we could probably do a part 2.
Yeah,
Sure, that was fun.
we'll find the topic. Basically, we were always saying who's the top, what's the topic, and then who's the individual, and then we just flop them around to see what we can get to work. And we also have Mariana, who said that Bambos and Andy are indeed in love. I think so.
I think so too.
Nice,
Oh,
beautiful.
yeah.
So thank you. Send you a hug, and I look forward to seeing you. I don't know soon, but I look forward to seeing you.
Nice to
in
meet
real
you.
form. Yes. Bye.
Bye.
So, Bambos,
Hey, Andy.
the exploration.
Oh, that was an incredible journey. What an hour.
Beautiful. I am so, I tell you, in gratitude towards like people allowing themselves just to be present with us with subjects that are not easy, you know.
And but also the other side is I don't feel that we have any judgment.
Yeah.
So it makes it easy.
Yeah, and if you look at her and her journey, you know, her journey, and it's not unlike a journey that I myself have made. I remember one day I made this great screw up in a relationship with my brother, because at some point I saw that when I said love, the word love got me really confused, because I said I can't say that I love anymore. I can say I have feelings of love, but if I say I love you, I noticed that there was a confusion inside of me. There was this idea that now I'm attaching something to you that isn't always there.
So I'm having the experience of love.
Yeah. So I started to say, wow, so I see I experience love, but sometimes I experience hate. So at some point in my own development, I shared with one of my brothers, I said, you know, and I didn't want to hurt him. I didn't intend. I just said, you know, I can't say I love you. You know, I said, I can tell you that I love you now and I have feelings of love you, but I can't say that now. I can't. And I saw it was so hurtful for him. It hurt him on such a deep level, because he couldn't see that I was just touching on what is distinguishing between love as this concept in my head and what's the feeling of love and how does it change in any moment. And it took years. I mean, he went back to that talk several times and said how hurtful it was for him. And later he actually understood it, meaning he explained it back to me what I was fighting or trying to make sense of then.
Nice.
So it came full circle, but that was a lot of years in between. And what I hear in this sort of journey of Karyn is that she was and is looking and discovering what is love and how does it evolve and what is it for her. And there are no boundaries. So we're not going to say there's love, but then we're going to put a love that's sexual is not love anymore. Like, no, there's all boundaries. We get to explore it to its nth degree and see what's left over. What do I learn from this?
I was also quite impressed in the beginning when she spoke about her relationship with their sons.
Yeah.
Like, I need to maybe be a little bit more normal in that context.
Yeah.
And like how our minds project an idea on how it should be, as opposed to actually seeing wow, this woman is happy.
Yeah.
She's shiny. She's singing. She's like dressed colorful. She's sensual.
Yeah.
She's connected to her 5 senses.
She
there's no suppression, like to the point that I can be naked in the house and not have an issue with it. And all of a sudden, shame.
Can you imagine? Like, I'm always so frustrated when the first question someone doesn't ask, or at least be observant of, is, are you happy? Because if you're happy, then why the hell are you trying to impose your ideas or your mental models on somebody else? because you need something for them or you want something from them.
Well, I need to be, I would say I need to be comfortable. You make me uncomfortable, so you need to adjust yourself.
Yeah. And if you think about it, like in society, for us as individuals, on each of us on our own journeys, like we get to decide what tension we can live with as we evolve within a society with limitations. And in this case, sexual and money, those are the two biggies. The two biggies, because there's so much stigma attached to them. I told you on the streets with Ronnie, we were talking about money, and she said, Andy, we're in Amsterdam. You can't talk about money on the street.
Can I talk about sex?
And then sex. And then I started shouting out sex words, and she was okay with that. I mean, like, how is it that the stigmatization of one word or one label or one concept is inappropriate, but all of a sudden another one that would be stigmatized in another land or another city for that matter is all of a sudden seen in such a different light? Yeah. So
thanks, guys, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for joining us for another hour on A Wonderful Chaos. Who do we have tomorrow, Bambos?
Tomorrow we have Truth, I Have It.
Oh, Truth, I Have It. That's going to be Bambos and I alone for the day. We're going to discuss what is it about individuals that makes them think that they actually know.
Yeah.
We have that for the hour. That's going to be a lot of fun.
And then Friday we have How I Overcame Rage with the wonderful friend called Yana Faye Jete.
Yeah, beautiful. So we got two great shows coming up. Thank you for joining us.
Beautiful day, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.